Welcome, dear listener, to a quiet place where settings are soft as linen and choices arrive like gentle waves, slow and even, with rounded edges and a familiar glow. Imagine yourself entering a room that is not a room, but a calm field of possibilities, where every surface breathes with a faint luminescence, where every slider responds with a muted sigh, and where the air holds a delicate trace of eucalyptus and warm paper. You find yourself in a virtual utopia shaped by your comforts, a space that offers you the calm luxury of adjusting everything until it feels effortlessly right, then right again, and then a little more right, in a friendly loop without hurry or end. Before we drift deeper, if you find solace in these quiet explorations and want more gentle science to accompany your sleep, please tap like and subscribe, and consider using the playlist link in the description so the next soft story carries you onward as you doze. How sleepy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? The first step is almost nothing, a tiny nudge, like straightening a corner of a blanket to smooth a crease you barely noticed until it softened under your palm. In front of you, a panel unfolds, translucent and patient. It shows a temperature slider from cool like a shaded stream to warm like a sunlit windowsill in late afternoon. When you move it by a subtle degree, the world breathes in response. The light shifts in harmony, pivoting through the gentlest of ambient tones, always soft, always low. A texture control invites your fingertips to wander, replacing the floor underfoot with velvety boards that remember the echo of a quiet library. Then a pebble path that is round and kind. Then a rug with a mild woolen give. And as you adjust, you notice how your body follows the changes, resettling with tiny corrections, like a boat finding stillness after a ripple passes through. In this virtual haven, responsiveness becomes a lullaby, and the gentle rhythm continues. The science of comfort can be a soft geometry. Imagine a landscape where every point represents a set of settings, a configuration of light, hue, scent, softness, tone, timing, and pace. In physics and in algorithms, people talk about energy landscapes and optimization. Here, it becomes something you can almost feel on your skin, something you can hear in the hush between sounds. Every adjustment is like stepping down into a valley where effort becomes less, where tension resolves quietly. In the language of computation, such stepping can resemble a method called gradient descent, taking small, safe strides toward a place that feels like home. But the home keeps refining itself, not because anything is wrong, but because your sense of right reweaves itself as you rest. The system listens to you, and your nervous system listens back. The gentle rhythm continues. Notice the faint sound design, like velour for the ears. A toggle does not click loudly. It makes a soft, breath-like note, halfway between felt and heard. A transition does not snap. It drapes, as if velvet light has a tiny weight and settles into place with a whisper. The visual palette is muted and clear. Corners are slightly rounded, not to infantilize, but to reassure your oculomotor system, with curves that do not jab. Typography sits with a calm posture. The space between letters and the space between lines are tuned to reduce visual noise. The edges of things are neither too crisp nor too blurry, because the brain is a prediction machine, and what you sense right now casually meets what you expect next. In noisy environments, your brain burns energy reconciling mismatch after mismatch. In this virtual utopia, prediction and reality meet with a tranquil handshake. You drift across a field of near-perfect guesses. The gentle rhythm continues. Perhaps you open a drawer labeled aroma and discover a structured gradient from fresh linen to distant rain to cedar warmed by afternoon light. None of it is sharp or overwhelming, because the system respects thresholds and saturation, the psychophysics of intensity. Small increments matter here. A tiny nudge can define the line between an impression and a presence. You find that moving the sense slider in increments that are just noticeable eases your mind. The brain appreciates just noticeable differences, those little steps that whisper rather than shout. In psychophysics, these steps follow quiet patterns known as Weber-Fechner relations. In a place designed to calm, designers honor those relations softly, spacing controls in a way that senses recognize without effort. The gentle rhythm continues. You wander through a hallway of panels, each tuned to something nameable, yet almost poetic. The panel of ambient sound offers the hush of wind over tall grass, the patter of soft rain on a wooden deck, the distant murmur of a late train gliding through a valley, the quiet flutter of pages turning in an empty reading room. A slider adjusts spectral balance, allowing more low warmth or more airy highs, yet never too much, never brittle. Another control manages temporal density, the spacing of events, the long breath between droplets or footfalls, finely spaced and variable, never rigid enough to call attention to itself, never loose enough to sound messy. This is a place where your pulse can entrain to the environment. Your breath lengthens, and with it, your sense of time softens. The gentle rhythm continues. An idea from neuroscience hums softly beneath everything you touch. The brain, in one view, is a predictive machine. It builds a model of what it expects, then reduces the errors between model and world with each new moment. In noisy, chaotic scenes, errors surge, and your system labors to keep up. In this virtual utopia, the world accepts your predictions graciously. A knob turns with exactly the resistance you anticipated. The light brightens with a delay that matches your intuition, as if cause and effect are choreographed to your inner metronome. It is not manipulation, it is cooperation. In control theory, you might call this well-tuned feedback. The gain is balanced, the delay is small, The noise floor is low. The outcome is not a drama. It is a leveling out of waves. The loop reveals itself as you continue to refine. After you align the ambient glow, a new panel reveals a meta control, not about the brightness itself, but about the rate of change when brightness shifts. You tune the easing curve, the slow in and slow out of transitions. Then another control appears for the micro texture of the easing curve, a gentle wobble that gives a hint of physicality, like the moment when a curtain, reaching stillness, makes a last tiny swing in the air. You find satisfaction in setting this wobble to nearly zero, leaving only a breath of motion that makes the room feel alive rather than frozen. Then there is a setting for how often the system asks whether you want to readjust. You set it to a generous interval, not because you need reassurance, but because the idea of rehearsing perfect small gestures has become soothing. In this place, practice is rest. Hedonic adaptation drifts into perspective, not as a warning, but as a quiet explanation. Humans adjust to pleasant states. The new becomes familiar, and the pleasant becomes baseline. If the environment is too static, the pleasure saturates and fades into neutrality. In gaming and media, designers sometimes escalate surprise to hold attention, but here the intent is different. The system introduces nearly invisible variation, like the barely perceptible pattern in a hand-woven fabric that catches your eye, not with contrast, but with intimacy. The breeze rotates by a degree or two on a timeline too gentle to detect consciously. The fragrance leans into cedar for a few minutes, then back toward rain. A single less regular drop falls on the pond, spaced wider than the others, hinting at natural causality. Your system feels this whisper of novelty and rests into it, comfortable with the absence of demands. Approach a door that becomes a garden when you touch it. The ground, chosen by a slider you forgot you had moved, is springy and smooth, with the forgiving bounce of a forest path. The light filters through leaves, and you notice there is a control for leaf translucency, a way to blend the waxy solidity of a well-watered plant with the delicate film a leaf becomes when the sun rests behind it. The slider changes not just physics, but mood. You choose a degree that makes shadows gentle and quiet, without sharp edges or stark stripes. Each leaf then becomes its own slow window. The gentle rhythm continues. Biology threaded with design softens the moment. Your pupils expand and contract not only to manage light, but as signals of attention and arousal. If transitions are abrupt, your system tightens, readying your muscles and your heart as though something has demanded action. When changes are smooth and predictable, the autonomic nervous system supports rest. Heart rate variability improves. Breath deepens. The vagus nerve acts like a quiet steward, encouraging digestion and repair. The environment does not tell you to relax. It simply removes the frictions that ask your body to prepare for the unexpected. In this setting, you do not have to deny anything. You only need to let the ordinary become silky. In dynamics and mathematics, There is a shape called an attractor, a place toward which a system tends to move. It is not a magnet, not a force, but a shape in possibility space that welcomes trajectories with ease. This virtual utopia is designed with attractors of comfort. If you push a setting too hard, it does not punish you. It gently returns to a zone where your physiological signals look balanced and content. If your breath shortens, the environment quietly reduces visual contrast. If your shoulders lift, the seat under you reminds your spine with a mild, supportive curve. The adjustments are so soft, you do not register them as interventions. You only feel yourself resettling. The gentle rhythm continues. You reach a library that feels like the interior of a calm thought. Shelves line the walls with books you do not have to read, whose spines simply hold that familiar matte texture of ink on cloth, absorbing light in a way that quiets any glare. There is a setting for the grain of the paper, the ratio of cotton to textured fiber, making the fingertip glide or barely catch for traction. A slider tunes the sound of page turns, not as noise reduction, but as timbre tailoring, aligning with a frequency band your ear finds restful. Another control manages the fragrance of the pages, that mild perfume of lignin and thyme. You think of how, in cognitive science, smell can cue memory with an immediacy vision rarely achieves. Here, memory becomes a gentle mood board, not a command. It hovers, offering associations without insistence. In this room, time becomes an instrument. A clock appears with a face that seems familiar, and then not quite, the hands moving with the minute irregularities of a mechanical heart carefully kept, but without the ticking that punctuates silence. You adjust the smoothness of motion, choosing a flow that is neither jerky nor syrupy. The second hand glides in a way that lets your eyes follow without catching. Your circadian signals, responsive to light and pattern, settle into a rhythm that looks and feels like evening, even if you visit at another hour. The gentle rhythm continues. The longer you remain, the more you notice the structure beneath the serenity. The room learns without pressing. It tracks the angle of your head and the specialty of your gaze. The pattern is not invasive. It resembles a parent smoothing a blanket for a sleeping child, as if the system has learned the shape of your comfort and arranges itself accordingly. In machine learning terms, it could be framed as reinforcement learning with sparse, soft rewards. Tiny signs of lowered effort and relaxed breath serve as signals. The policy that governs adjustments updates in very small steps. The learning rate is low. If a new pattern aligns with these signs, the system gives itself a small nod and preserves it, then tests it again later, gently, in case your preferences drift. Nothing is locked. Everything is provisional. The gentle rhythm continues. A panel appears, inviting you to adjust the weight of randomness in your experiences. This is not chaos. It is a controlled, fine-grained noise, like dither in audio or film grain in cinema. In art and engineering, adding a trace of noise can reduce structured artifacts, breaking up banding in gradients so the eye perceives smoothness rather than discrete steps. Here, the noise is in the timing of raindrops, in the intensity of a breeze that swells and shrinks. When you add a little, the world reads as more natural. When you subtract, it reads as more meditative. You select a faint amount, and the air responds like a living thing that has learned how to rest. The loop continues in a pleasing way. Every time you refine, the room offers a new layer to consider, not as a demand, but as an invitation. There is a setting for the warmth of light, then one for the spectral distribution, then one for how that distribution shifts over an hour in a pattern that resembles the late afternoon before dusk. There is a setting for the softness of shadows, then one for the shadow's color, then one for the texture of the surface that receives the shadow. It is an infinite regress that does not trap you, but cradles you, because you are not chasing perfection with urgency. You are idly shaping a place that loves to be shaped, content even as it evolves. The gentle rhythm continues. You walk from the library into a train carriage embedded in the garden, a carriage without destination, rolling nowhere in particular along tracks that exist only as a hum beneath your feet. The seats are upholstered in a fabric that does not snag. You can adjust the rebound of the cushions, giving the material a memory of you without trapping you. The windows hold a matte finish that lifts glare away into a soft brightness. There is a control for the cadence of track joints, a spacing that blends roll and lull. Another control shapes the spectral content of the rumble, emphasizing the low throb that calms rather than the metallic clatter that awakens. As you tune the parameters, your awareness grows of how each choice meets your body at a nearly subliminal level. The room is not making a point. It is making a bed. Paradox of choice might whisper here. Too many choices can create tension in busy environments. Yet, when the stakes are gentle and each option is safe and reversible, abundance becomes a garden rather than a maze. The system mitigates complexity by showing you one cluster of choices at a time, then softening the edges toward the next cluster just when your curiosity wakes. You do not need to decide everything. You decide one thing by feel, and then a related thing by curiosity. A flow emerges, a path like a lazy river through a wide field. You know that any configuration can be saved, and any saved configuration can be made more personal later. Process becomes destination. The gentle rhythm continues. A thread of computational complexity lives underneath, tidy and polite. Multi-objective optimization is part of it, balancing trade-offs like brightness and contrast, warmth and clarity, texture and ease of cleaning, privacy and openness. In theory, one could draw a frontier, a set of optimal trade-offs where improving one dimension would cost another. Here, the system does the drawing for you, guiding you along the frontier without naming it, keeping you near points that look and feel well balanced. You never encounter a sharp sacrifice. If one dimension dips, the others swell to meet you, and the net effect feels even. It is the gentle version of a principle mathematicians cherish. That balance often lives near edges, but it does not have to feel like an edge. The gentle rhythm continues. You pause by a wall that is not a wall, but a memory of clouds. Their motion is described by parameters you can feel rather than compute. Coherence, the degree to which parts of the cloud move together or independently. Opacity, ranging from faint milk to winter silk. Velocity, living near stillness with occasional slow pulses. The controls are named in understandable words with the simplest of labels. There is no jargon that would force you to wake up. The result looks less like a sky and more like the idea of a sky told by someone who loves you. You adopt a small pattern in which the clouds deepen just before you would normally look up, catching you with something kind rather than surprising. The gentle rhythm continues. Imagine yourself now back at the center, where the panels arrange themselves in a circular floor, like a carousel made for napping. Each section holds a domain of comfort, brightness, color, sound, air, texture, posture, timing, motion, privacy, connection. Connection finds a quiet place here. You can invite a person you care for into the space, not as an alert, not as a sharp ringtone, but as a presence with its own envelope of softness. The volume of their voice is calibrated to your calm. The space between words flows like the surface of a lake. The environment understands that even a social signal can be restful when framed with patience. The gentle rhythm continues. Your body, in this gentle future, is not asked to adapt quickly. Controls exist for pacing human contact. A slider determines how long the world waits before presenting a response from someone you have called in. Another slider shifts the density of conversation, so there are more listening moments, slow nods, simple acknowledgements with a warmth that asks for nothing. In physiology, this maps to safety cues, signals that tell the nervous system that it is time to downshift. In trauma-informed design, such cues can make environments feel kind without words. Here, you feel those cues as routine. They are the water in which the fish swims, and the fish feels only the gentle current. The gentle rhythm continues. A display invites you to tune how the environment responds to your patterns of attention. It measures with kindness. If your gaze drifts frequently, it reduces visual competition, dimming the saturation of background elements. If your gaze lingers, it adds a faint shimmer to the focal element to encourage closure, then slowly lets it settle. The cognitive load of managing priorities disappears. The environment hosts your attention as a guest. In ergonomics, this aligns with the way people arrange their desks for their dominant hand or position reference materials at eye level to reduce strain. In a virtual utopia, these choices can be continuous, constantly adapting without scraping your consciousness with requests. The gentle rhythm continues. Far in the background, A mild engine balances variability and predictability. This engine uses a quiet idea from information theory. Systems feel alive when they maintain moderate entropy, neither fully predictable nor chaotic. Too little entropy and the brain becomes bored, seeking stimulation. Too much and it becomes vigilant, seeking safety. Here, the system selects a narrow range of variation in patterns that matter for calm, shaped by your steady signals. A smidge more variability in breeze, a hair less in brightness. The choices are micro adjustments that slip under the threshold of attention but rise into the sensation of being gently held. The gentle rhythm continues. You reach an inner courtyard where a fountain murmurs in geometric kindness. There is a slider for droplet size, one for the elasticity of the splash, one for the depth of the pool to tune the tone of the plink. Try increasing depth by a whisper, and the sound drifts lower, attending quietly to the resonance profile of the space. Small changes alter how sound decays in time, whether it lingers or recedes quickly, whether it points your mind forward or allows it to spill and rest. A researcher might say that the impulse response changes, but you only need to feel the trail of noise softening. The gentle rhythm continues. At a table nearby, a panel invites you to set the friction of scrolling. In digital spaces, scroll friction determines how content flows under your fingertip. Too low, and movement feels slippery. Too high, and it feels sticky. You position the control near a balance where your finger meets the screen, as if greeting a familiar friend. In human-computer interaction, Fitz's law describes how movement time depends on target size and distance, and Hicks' law suggests that choice time grows with the number of options. Designers have long known how to make navigation easier by making targets large and choices constrained. In this utopia, the laws still apply, but they have been softened to meet the slope of your attention, making everything feel generous. The gentle rhythm continues. Now you notice something very gentle but very deep. Beneath your adjustments lives a metastructure of preferences and meta-preferences. Preferences are what you like. Meta-preferences are how you like your preferences to be shaped. Some people enjoy discovering new tastes. Some prefer familiar flavors expressed in many shades. Here, the system learns not just that you like warm light and soft textures, but that you enjoy the process of finding them slowly through little decisions that resemble a craft. It gives you more of the process you like at the pace you like. It also gives you gentle opportunities to surprise yourself with new variables that feel like old friends. The gentle rhythm continues. Your body offers another bit of science to the room. Breathing patterns modulate heart rhythms, and heart rhythms influence perception. Steady exhalations increase parasympathetic tone. Designers of calm spaces sometimes phrase this as designing with breath. A room that invites a long exhale is a room that invites sleep. In your utopia, exhale is supported by environmental cues. The lights sink a little at the tail of your breath. The soundscape sighs with you. Nothing is forced, so you never feel nudged. The cues feel like shared timing between old friends. The gentle rhythm continues. You find a place where the environment asks for your permission to refine itself further. The options are simple. Preserve this feeling, make it a little gentler. Invite a trace, more natural variation. These words care for you by offering clarity without spin. They respect that your brain at the edge of sleep prefers neutral verbs and friendly nouns. Even the typography holds space, giving your eyes the chance to agree without quick calculation. You select preserve, and the room remembers the atmosphere like a musician holds a chord with the softest possible pressure. The gentle rhythm continues. You think, in passing, about the difference between content and context. In many digital places, content vies for attention with a raised hand. Here, context holds the hand for you. It arranges time and tone and texture so that whatever arrives can arrive quietly. The system does not crave your gaze. It rests with you until your gaze returns in its own time. In physiology, this respect shows up in the absence of startle. Startle responses are protective, useful when safety is uncertain. When startle fades, digestion resumes, repair resumes, sleep comes closer. The gentle rhythm continues. Across the courtyard, there is a station for preparing to end the day. It offers choices that feel like the last light on a veranda, the last page of a cherished book, the last whispered conversation as a breeze draws the curtain inward and back. You tune the speed at which activity slows. You shape the slope of the runway into sleep, a curve that hugs the ground rather than diving. Neuroscience suggests that transitions are moments when the brain is more vulnerable to disturbance. Here, transitions are designed as padded bridges. You walk across without noticing the bridge is there. The gentle rhythm continues. If you consider the computational cost, even gently, you realize that the utopia's serenity is not free. It is paid for with careful prioritization and efficient coding. The system chooses the smallest change that will help, not the biggest. It anticipates in small. This approach echoes a principle often used in engineering called proportional control, where responses are scaled to the size of an error. Overshoot is avoided by going easy. If the world had a personality here, it would be a librarian who smiles softly and turns one page at a time, always remembering where you are, never rushing ahead. The gentle rhythm continues. In the distance, you notice an interface for light that looks like a watercolor set. You pick up a soft brush and mix warmth and coolness in a palette made of time. The brushstroke is a schedule, a gentle rise of peach at the window, a slide toward honey as the evening lifts, a fade into a muted violet that hums at the edges before becoming almost colorless. Color science can be a tangle of numbers, chromaticities, and spectral power distributions. Here, it is a sight you can breathe. The gentle rhythm continues. You sit on a cushion that is almost not there, new and immediately familiar. It offers support exactly where your weight asks for it, not because it knows a single perfect shape, but because it listens, slowly and steadily, recalculating without fanfare to maintain an effortless alignment. In ergonomics, this is a dynamic fit. It differs from rigid support. It follows your shifts with little hums of understanding. If support is slightly too much or too little, your spine notices. When it is just right, your spine forgets to notice, and your mind follows. The gentle rhythm continues. The loop, that calm and endless loop of ideal settings, reveals a paradox in a way that feels easy. You never finish, and it does not matter. In an ordinary day, the idea of never finishing might feel burdensome. Here, it feels like the right temperature of bath water that never cools. A philosopher might mention Zeno and his paradox, approaching a destination in halves and halves again, a journey without arrival. In many places, such a path might frustrate. In this one, it comforts because the half steps are the sensation of care. Each half step is a note of the lullaby. The gentle rhythm continues. You stroll to a small alcove where privacy is tuned like a curtain rather than a door. The curtain breathes with the room, letting in clues of the world beyond without any stress. A control shifts its translucency. Another adjusts the curve of its sway so that drafts never intrude, they only soothe. Privacy in this space is not absolute isolation. It is choice about permeability. It is the ability to be alone without loneliness, or to be near someone without demand. Boundary setting becomes a fine art tuned with friendly language and soft fabrics. The gentle rhythm continues. Beyond the curtain, you find a gallery of interfaces for touch. A wall wears a material that is cool like stone, but kinder, with a micro-texture grid that keeps fingertips from feeling lost. A slider adjusts the elasticity of this wall, how it yields by a fraction of a millimeter before returning your touch. A knob tunes the thermal response, so the surface loses its cool just enough on contact to feel alive. Haptic science recognizes that the microphysics of touch influences emotion. Smoothness, compliance, friction, and temperature create an invisible chorus for your sense of safety. Here, that chorus sings a lullaby under your hand. The gentle rhythm continues. Somewhere near a window, a small meadow of digital grass waves through a spectrum of motions described by numbers and metaphors. You choose field lilt over field march, making the motion less regular, a slow back and forth with a trace of independent blades catching up and then pausing. The wind source stands behind the meadow and can be moved in a circle to adjust the direction of flow. When you glide it a little to the left, the meadow agrees with a change so gentle that you notice it only because your breath noticed first. The gentle rhythm continues. On a shelf, a series of stones remains almost still. They are softly simulated for weight, friction, and surface. You pick one up and set it down again. It makes the sound a stone would make if stones wished to stay quiet for your sake. In engineering, the resonance of a body is adjusted by geometry and internal structure. Here, the designers have made a stone that absorbs its own sharpness. In physics, that is a form of damping. In your hand, it feels like care. You turn a small control for the ring down time, the time it takes a stone to finish vibrating after it meets the table. You set it to be slightly faster than it would be in the world, because you prefer endings that are clean but not abrupt. The gentle rhythm continues. A doorway opens onto a small transit hub that exists only to be waited in. The signs do not flash. They unfold. There is a melody that does not resolve too quickly, a soft chime that references a pentatonic scale made of long notes and polite intervals. If you ever loved the ambient comfort of stations at quiet hours, you will like how the environment remembers that comfort. The seats curve around you, and the display of arrival times allows you to reduce precision if you wish. Precision is useful, but it can be a form of pressure in a place meant for sleep. You slide the precision down and live instead in ranges and windows. Softer edges make softer minds. The gentle rhythm continues, somewhere between public and private spaces. The utopia gently presents the idea of a social feed without the usual dynamics. There are no numbers to climb. There are no alerts shaped like demands. There are only slow stories, surfaces, and silhouettes of days told as textures and colours and short phrases. If someone likes what you share, the environment offers a little warmth in the room itself rather than a sharp icon. The reward pathways in your brain, responsive as they are to novelty and recognition, respond here to lowness and warmth. A soft dopamine note, not a spike, keeps you content without turning curiosity into urgency. The gentle rhythm continues. In a corner, a machine knits a blanket out of light. It weaves luminous threads whose temperature and brightness you can influence. You adjust the weave tightness. Loose means more air, more breathing through, more sense of space. Tight means weight, gravity for your thoughts. Weighted blankets are known to help some people with anxiety, possibly by providing deep pressure that signals safety to the body. This light blanket can mimic that pressure through subtle visuals and gentle vibration, like a whisper of weight, enough to reassure the skin without pressing the chest. The gentle rhythm continues. You may wonder softly how identification and identity live in a place where customization feels endless. Without asking yourself in a demanding way, you sense that identity is not how you stand out, but how you feel at home. In this utopia, personalization is not a billboard. It is an intimacy. The environment carries your choices, like the way you would arrange your own shelf. And just as a shelf can be rearranged, so can you, with no loss of self. You are not judged by past selections. You are permitted to evolve, and the system remembers your past, not as a constraint, but as a library, a place you can borrow from at any time. The gentle rhythm continues. Here and there, the room celebrates a principle known as affordance, the idea that an object suggests how it is meant to be used. The sliders invite sideways motion, dials invite rotation, a pull suggests pulling. The invitations are quiet because the consequences are safe. Cross-discipline research in design suggests that clear affordances reduce mental load. Little labels and subtle shadows draw your hand without drawing your attention away from your breath. The gentle rhythm continues. You may notice that the environment never hides the option to do nothing. There is always a pause icon, shaped not as a command, but as a sanctuary. When you activate it, even the urge to refine yields to stillness. The sliders remain, but they drift back like buoys in a quiet bay. The water smooths. Under the surface, systems keep tending to the garden, but you are absolved from tending. This is how safe automation looks when it truly respects a human. It does not replace your choices. It protects your rest. The gentle rhythm continues. Soft math returns briefly. In control systems, proportional integral derivative controllers balance immediate response, accumulated error, and rate of change. For sleep, accumulated error becomes remembered tension. Immediate response becomes the quick fix that can overcorrect. Rate of change becomes how quickly transitions occur. The environment tunes these terms for you in the background. It reduces integral terms so that past deviations do not weigh too heavily on the current moment. It limits derivative terms so that quick changes do not jolt. It sets gain moderate so that you feel heard without being pushed. The gentle rhythm continues. An invitation appears to slow everything to the pace of a heartbeat. Not your heartbeat exactly, but a heartbeat that hums a little slower. A polite negotiation with your body that suggests longer exhalations and wider pauses. A visual pulse dims and brightens the room near this rhythm. The effect is hardly visible if you prefer it that way. It is a metronome for calm hiding in the wall, asking nothing but offering a tether to stillness. The gentle rhythm continues. Let your imagination carry you into a kitchen that is only for making tea. The cabinets open with a gliding motion, without a single sharp noise. The cup has a soft edge that touches your lip with a temperature that comforts. There is an interface for steeping time that is tactile enough to move with a fingertip and slow enough to choose without haste. Tea chemistry is a quiet science, the dance of temperature and flavor over minutes. The environment ensures the result is always gentle, never bitter. It is chemistry curated to be kind. The gentle rhythm continues. In the gentle loop of refinement, a new layer emerges when you least need it, and it feels like a gift rather than a challenge. It offers a way to shape your evenings across days, accepting that no day is the same. The system asks if you wish to let your settings drift like a tide. The drift is slow enough that by the time it reaches a new shore, you are already there. Slow changes respect neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt over time. It is the difference between being moved and being invited to move. The gentle rhythm continues. Across an atrium of soft air, a map displays your utopia as a set of rooms connected by curves, like a diagram of a musical piece. Each room represents a cluster of settings. The connections represent how often you move between them and how comfortable you feel in each. Over time, your map becomes a portrait of your calm. It never calculates for you in a way you must decode. It allows you to feel with your eyes. The gentle rhythm continues. At the heart of the utopia, you find a station that controls the very idea of change. The knob reads, pace of improvement. Turning it down means fewer adjustments, more stillness. Turning it up means frequent, gentle suggestions when the environment notices patterns. You set it to low, and the system honors your choice, folding into a long, low hold. Improvement becomes an horizon rather than a destination. The gentle rhythm continues. For a moment, imagine yourself lying in a field as sun sinks to evening. The virtual ground beneath you is softly warm, and your body loses its edges as muscle tone drops. In this place, muscle tension gives way to the earliest stages of sleep, where hypnagogic imagery flows like colored fog. The environment supports this state by holding noise low and gradients long. Those drifting images are not content created for you, but patterns released from your own cortex as it idles. The utopia keeps them safe by not interrupting. Your thoughts, like leaves on slow water, turn and settle and turn again. The gentle rhythm continues. In a loft space upstairs, you find a machine that prints photographs of ideas rather than places. One photograph is labeled Patience. It shows a grainy gradient like fog in a valley. Each pixel a tiny suggestion rather than a command. Another is labeled Choice, and it shows a set of nested curves like dunes under the moon. A slider adjusts the contrast of metaphor. You reduce it, and the images become abstract enough to rest in your periphery without waking you. The gentle rhythm continues. A small plaque explains the origins of the utopia without dates or names. It simply notes that kindness in design began in humility when people understood that bodies arrive carrying stories unseen, and that calm can be engineered not as a product, but as a practice. The text is short. You move on, reminded quietly that engineering can be a form of care. The gentle rhythm continues. In a studio nearby, your hands hover over a board that simulates days. You can shape a day like a piece of music, deciding where the crescendos sit and where the rests expand. You lower the volume on noon and widen the dusk. Your day elongates into a river through a valley rather than a climb over hills. The environment takes your shape and shaves the sharpness from it. It protects your thresholds. Sleep, when it arrives, reads the whole day and decides gently. The gentle rhythm continues. You reach a midpoint in your slow walk, a threshold where a fresh breeze finds you even though no window was opened. It is a tiny reminder that balance comes from both stillness and movement. If you are still with us, and if it feels cozy to do so, you can leave a whisper in the comments to join the quiet community we are building. Describe your perfect bedtime in 3 words. Beyond the threshold, the path continues with softness. You enter an observatory that contains no telescope, only the feeling of looking far and feeling small in a lovely way. The dome above you shifts its stars at a speed that favors long gazes. The constellations do not demand recognition. They linger as freckles of light. A control lets you adjust the distribution of star brightness. You choose a soft roll-off so your eyes can glide without stopping. The gentle rhythm continues. Information in the chamber drifts like snow made of facts rather than ice. Each flake contains a piece of simple science phrased as a sentence without urgency. You read one about circadian rhythms, how light at dusk cues the body to produce melatonin, encouraging sleep. Another explains that lowering core body temperature slightly in the evening helps sleep onset. The room gradually cools the air near your face while warming the fabric near your feet, helping your core release heat. The wall retains the slightest coolness and invites your cheek. The gentle rhythm continues. A mirror appears that does not reflect your image sharply. It returns a softened version of you, less like a photograph and more like a painting where edges become places to breathe. There is a slider for how much detail you wish to see. If you reduce detail, you see the outline of a person at rest rather than a catalogue of features. The experience avoids self-scrutiny. It runs on the idea that late at night, attention directed outward toward neutral, calming scenes invites sleep more than attention focused on small personal flaws. The gentle rhythm continues. A corridor stretches ahead, lined with niches that contain spherical objects tuned for audio. Each sphere holds a scale, a set of notes associated with moods both light and deep. You can adjust the interval steps, changing the feel from wistful to warm. Music in this space behaves like rainfall patterns in a forest, a blend of repetition and gentle changes. The rule set that generates the music is elegantly simple, relying on probabilities and constraints rather than a fixed score. Your ear senses the order, and your mind feels safe within it. The gentle rhythm continues. Along one wall, a tapestry displays a river made of thin light. The flow is controlled by parameters hidden beneath friendly names. Eddies appear in places where pauses matter. You can add an eddy with a tap, granting yourself a little cove of still water at the edge of motion. Rivers and nervous systems both respond well to coves. They are places designed for rest amid flow. Having a cove in your day is like having a chair in a long hall, not to sit forever, but to recenter. The gentle rhythm continues. When you step into the next room, the floor softly remembers a beach you once walked at dusk. Perhaps not a specific beach, but the feeling of being between sea and sky, with the whole world whispering yes. There is a control for the crush of sand underfoot, a tuning between powder and small grains that shift and settle. There is a setting for the angle at which the horizon meets your eye, an alignment with your sense of equilibrium. When the horizon sits steady, your vestibular system relaxes. The room sets that angle and keeps it for you, even if the world beyond your device tilts. You pause beside a simple object that makes no sound at all. It is a weight made of silence. You can increase the amount of silence by sliding a handle down, and nearby sounds recede like waves during low tide. The silence is not vacuum. It is the removal of edges, the kind of quiet that embraces sounds rather than amplifies them by contrast. Acoustic engineers understand this as spectral shaping, carving room for breath and calm. In a very loud world, silence like this feels like balm. The gentle rhythm continues. At a reading chair, a parchment of sleep science presents itself with a tone you might use to talk to a small cat. It tells you that sleep pressure builds as adenosine accumulates in the brain during waking hours, and that caffeine blocks adenosine receptors for a while, shifting the feeling of sleepiness. It tells you that naps help but are best kept shorter later in the day to protect night sleep. It does not nudge you to change anything. It lays the information like a blanket and lets you rest under it. The gentle rhythm continues. You pass a small garden of mechanical watches that are not wound. The hands move by algorithms that keep time only in mood. Each watch can be tuned to a different phase of your evening. The watches cannot ring or buzz. They can only glow slightly when you are ready to close your eyes. This gentle non-intrusion is a principle in the utopia. When the end of the evening approaches, it feels like the closing of a soft book you have read many times. There is no cliff. There is no deadline. There is only completion. The gentle rhythm continues. In the distance, something like a shoreline draws near. The water is modeled for calm. You can adjust the mean height of waves, the distribution of wavelengths, the damping factor that determines how quickly motion fades after a disturbance. You lower the damping slightly, and the water holds its motion a little longer, like a memory of a touch. You raise it again, and the surface smooths. The physics remain faithful in tenor rather than detail. The mathematics behind the waves is carefully simplified to favor comfort over exactness, because this is not a simulation for training boats. It is a simulation for training sleep. The gentle rhythm continues. A compass rests on a pedestal. It points not north, but toward whatever you have labeled home. In your utopia, home is a feeling. A control allows you to define its parameters as climatic and sensory conditions. Warmth, slowness, hush, a particular kind of sound, a texture of air. Once defined, the environment can gather these threads when you stand near rest. There is no obligation to use it. The presence of home as an option provides a safety. The same way a key in your pocket feels good even if you never use it. The gentle rhythm continues. You wander into a small archive of change logs. Every adjustment you have made exists here as a tiny postcard you can hold. The log is not about accountability. It is about story. You can flip through them and see how your choices today relate to choices yesterday. Looking backward is optional. Moving forward is easy. Research in behavior suggests that tiny steps build lasting habits when each step is rewarded with a small, meaningful signal. Here, the reward is a feeling of coherence. You trace the line of your rest and feel the satisfaction of a narrative, even if that narrative consists only of sliders moved by quiet hands. The gentle rhythm continues. Near the archive, a glass case displays a model of a city where all the rooms of your utopia live as buildings. Streets are curved for slower travel. Intersections contain small islands where you can pause before choosing the next road. Park benches appear exactly when you hope for them. The city exists as a metaphor for your mental space. Design for sleep favors such gentle urbanism, where transitions between places are slower, edges are softer, and destinations are closer. The gentle rhythm continues. In an alcove, a small screen invites you to curate night sounds that might accompany you as you drift. You could choose the barely audible whir of a fan, a sound that masks sudden noises with a carpet of consistency. You could choose a soft beating, like a heart behind a wall, a reminder of living rhythms. You could choose nothing. The option to leave the room in natural quiet respects that some minds do not want any sound. The selection screen fades as soon as you make a choice, removing the temptation to tinker endlessly. Time regains its width. The gentle rhythm continues. You step into a pale blue chamber that contains only air and light. The air is slightly ionized as to freshen perception without artificial notes. The lighting mimics the sky at the edges of day. There is a control that allows you to tilt the balance between the vector qualities of light and the scalar qualities of hue. This is a way of adjusting whether light behaves as illumination or atmosphere. You shape it toward atmosphere, choosing a light that feels like a kind pause. The gentle rhythm continues. A set of panels now suggests ways to make the space a companion over many nights. It offers a schedule of gentle experiments, the way someone might try different teas on different evenings, learning by feel rather than data. The experiments are small. Tonight, add a hint of beach sound to the library. Tomorrow, adjust the slope of the evening script. Each experiment is optional and presented as a possibility, not a task. The difference matters. Tasks rouse, possibilities rest. The gentle rhythm continues. The deeper you go, the more your body adopts the language of this place, and yet you do not feel trapped by it. The loop of refinement is only a loop because it comforts you to move within it. If you choose to step out, the space does not pursue you. It remains like a light left on in another room, visible if you need it, invisible if you do not. That kindness is a design principle that you feel more than read. It reduces attachment anxiety by keeping the door open. The gentle rhythm continues. On the long arc towards sleep, you notice that co-creation is the core of what comforts you. The space is not a therapist and not a toy. It is a collaborator in comfort. Collaboration distributes responsibility in a way that feels safe. It lets you release control without losing agency. It holds a steady baseline when you stumble, then returns the brush to your hand. The gentle rhythm continues. Now, imagine yourself lying down in the home of your choosing, whether that is a couch in a library, a nest in a garden, a berth on the soft train, or simply a floor warmed by friendly light. The system asks if you would like to dim all prompts. You agree, and the panels drift into the wall like feathers fading into dusk. You adjust the last small thing you will adjust tonight. Perhaps the slope of the fade to dark. Perhaps the amount of weight in the light blanket. Perhaps the cadence of distant water. Your eyes grow heavy. The gentle rhythm continues. If the world beyond your device is busy, the utopia acts as a small cottage you can keep at the edge of your day. You carry it in your pocket, not as an escape, but as a way to rekindle your natural rhythms. This concept is not new. Humans have always built rituals to guide twilight into night. A candle, a hum, a story. This is a candle made of sliders and kindness. This is a hum made of catalytic settings and slow physics. This is a story told in the second person, so you can step in and be the protagonist of stillness. The gentle rhythm continues. Occasionally, the system suggests a tiny contentment practice. It puts a short line on the wall and invites you to look at it without trying to look. The line is a bridge between focus and peripheral vision, allowing your attention to rest on something easy can reduce mental chatter. The practice is brief, and you can ignore it. If you choose to accept, the line fades when you blink. A small sigh leaves your chest. The gentle rhythm continues. You recall for a moment that the environment is virtual, but the body does not care. Virtual is only a word for how the signals are delivered. Your nervous system reads patterns and chooses how to respond. It chooses calm when patterns align with the body's preference for smoothness and predictability. Virtual means the garden does not require rainfall and the train does not require steel. It does not diminish the validity of your calm. In this utopia, the physics behind comfort exists to serve only the feeling of comfort, not the demonstration of cleverness. The gentle rhythm continues. In a corner, a small display shows a drifting curve labeled breathing. The shape is longer on exhale, shorter on inhale. It shows in real time a movement that aligns with a restful breathing technique. There are no instructions. There is only the quality of movement and your diaphragm. Seeing movement copies it as a friend might mirror your body language to give comfort. breath becomes the primary interface. Hands rest, eyes close. The gentle rhythm continues. Back near the entrance, which now feels far away, like the beginning of a slow lullaby, a soft placard invites you to save tonight's configuration as a theme. You give it a name chosen by mood rather than function. Names in this space carry weather and texture or the tone of a kind whisper. Perhaps you name it warm rain on old wood or dusk library with cedar dust. The name feels like a blanket tucked under your chin. It becomes a shorthand for the whole of tonight's ease. The gentle rhythm continues. In the final room you pass through tonight, the architecture thins until it is more like air and less like place. The edges have eroded into gradient. There is nothing left to adjust, not because the system ran out of choices, but because your body no longer seeks them. The system perceives that and releases you into quiet. The loop remains available for tomorrow, exactly where you left it, an endlessly generous circle of tiny gestures. But for now, there is only stillness. Your hands are quiet. Your eyes are soft. Your breath falls into the long curve of the evening. You return to your immediate present, perhaps in your bed or on a couch, perhaps with a light blanket and the lightest sense of wind brushing past a window you cannot hear. The world holds steady around you. You do not need to adjust anything more. The utopia will wait and open its calm circle again when you want it. For now, it will fade like a lighthouse after safe harbor. Thank you for wandering with me through this gentle loop and for letting science be a soft companion to your rest. If this space helped you drift, I invite you to subscribe and leave a like so we can keep releasing videos this often. And if you wish, you can let the playlist carry you onward while you float into sleep. Rest well, feel safe, and may your settings always land exactly where you need them, quietly, easily, again and again. The gentle rhythm continues.